pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger roll, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight down, lead off. Bring in, SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks, you know the drill. Let us know if you can hear us, and let us know if you can see Pad 0B out there at Wallops Island, Virginia. John Galloway for NASASpaceflight here, kicking it off. Had to crank up the intro video a little bit. I read your comments. Even when I'm out in Boca Chica doing stuff. I still see what y'all say. So we are here for a Minotaur launch, classified payload NROL-111. Looks like we got a ton of 5x5s in chat, so let's get this party started this morning, evening, or good night, wherever you are. With me back in the studio, giggling at my joke, you can hear the voice of Chris Gebhardt. Chris, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good, Dus. I'm always here to laugh at your jokes.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Chris. Chris is the assistant managing editor for NASASpaceflight. You hear him on the live streams all the time, and also a purveyor of fine written words for NASASpaceflight. Articles left and right, Chris?
Oh, yes.
I think we have an article for this one that was written up that has a bunch of written information about today's launch. I know because I read it a little bit earlier. One of the mods, maybe somebody can get that link into chat to show some love for our articles as well. But Chris is going to be here with me doing some live Q&A. You know how our streams go. As we wait about 25 minutes for the scheduled launch of this NROL-111 mission. Also, back in the studio, I believe Michael Baylor. We need to verify if he's here. You here, Michael?
I'm here, but I am very tired.
You're here, but you're very tired. Over on the West Coast, it's still 6 a.m. Michael's time, but he is here joining us as well. Not even, it says reporter and developer across the board. Michael does tons of stuff to make these streams possible. And then out in the field today, running this fantastic live view, we've got Brady Kenniston. You know how I know how to say his name? Because I said his name wrong. I called him Kensington over and over and over. But I was at Wallops one day, and he told me how to pronounce his name in person, which I appreciate, Brady. Thank you for correcting me. He's not on comms right now, but he's out there running the camera and going to bring us the live views of this rocket launch. And when I say rocket launch, I'm not kidding. The Minotaur I goes off the pad like a rocket. I think it's where the phrase came from. Chris, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on today? NROL, what's the mysterious payload? Where's it going?
Yeah, so the answer to all of those questions is it's a secret. So in terms of the payload, there are three. We know there are three satellites on board. They are for the National Reconnaissance Office in coordination with the Space Force. We do not know what they are. We do not know what they are for. We simply know there are three of them. The motto for this mission is "Boldness, be my friend." And there's usually some things that we can glean from the artwork for National Reconnaissance Office launch missions. This one has a borer in an aviator jacket with wings, which they describe as being a good spirit guide to call on when you have ambitious goals and inspiring tenacity to achieve them, which is basically NRO speak for we're not telling you what's on board, but it's something interesting. Um, so, we unfortunately, what that also means is we do not know what the orbital target is for this particular mission in terms of what the exact inclination is. In terms of what the exact orbital height is. We know they're going sort of on a southerly trajectory out of Wallops based on the viewing chart that they have here, but we don't know the exact orbital height they're going to. However, we can infer some things because we do know quite a bit about the Minotaur rocket itself. And Das, I know this is one of your favorite rockets for something it does a couple of seconds after it gets off the pad.
It's a crazy rocket. It's all SRBs, isn't it? And it goes flying off the pad. It's got some sort of ridiculous thrust to weight because of its heritage. These rockets were not big lumbering rockets like the Saturn V moon rockets that we built. These rockets were originally ICBMs, weren't they?
Yes, they were. The first and second stages of the so the first stage of the Minotaur I rocket is a Minuteman II ICBM derived solid rocket motor, and the second stage is a ICBM derived SR-19 solid rocket motor. So the first two stages, which are actually shrouded right now in that little yellow thermal blanket down at the
The
bottom.
banana.
So the banana, yeah. So the yellow part is not actually paint or thermal protection foam that's sprayed onto the first two stages of the rocket. It's just a blanket that will peel away as peel like a banana, ha ha ha. That will peel away as the rocket gets out of the way very, very, very quickly. So those two stages are covered by that just for thermal protection to keep the propellants in the stages at the correct temperatures because your solid rocket propellant performance is based on temperatures. And these things were originally meant to be kept in somewhat air conditioned silos and launch out of the ground, but now they have to be put on pads. So you have the extra bit of thermal protection there for those stages. The third stage you can then see there as the white section, and then the payload fairing encapsulating the fourth stage as well. But it is an all solid rocket vehicle, and because DOS, as you were saying, they used to be intercontinental ballistic missiles for the first two stages, these things have to get out of there as
Yeah.
quickly as possible. So basically, we're used to seeing like Falcon 9s and Atlas 5s and Soyuzes, right? Rise off the pad very gradually and then execute very slow turns as they head out onto their proper trajectory. This thing will ascend vertical for a grand total of 2.5 seconds only, and then
Yep.
perform a near instantaneous pitch from 90 to 74 degrees. It is incredible.
It
What's
literally
even
does like the left at Albuquerque. Like it goes up for
it
2.5
does.
seconds and then it turns all of a sudden and just this does this immediate pitch. It's one of the craziest things to see. You're used to seeing Starlinks and Falcon 9s, and you've watched our streams before. You've seen these rockets go lumbering off the pad. And you're like, wow, look at that! Oh, it's really going. I hope in 20 minutes you get to see this thing literally leap off the pad and hang an immediate. I think it's
Yeah,
going to be a right here. I think Brady would be looking to the east. So if it's going
it's a right.
southerly,
Yeah.
it's going to hang a right really quickly. So when this launch goes, I think we're actually going to zoom this camera out a little bit. If we left it this zoomed in, we would get like 2 frames of rocket and then it would be gone. So
Yeah, basically the top of that, like the top of our screen right now, is basically the moment where the rocket would pitch at two
start
and
to
a half
pitch.
seconds in flight. Yeah,
Jeez.
like that's how intense it is. But there's another thing about this rocket that's also really cool, DOS, and this is the way that the first two stages stage when they separate from one another, right? Because with solid rocket boosters, as soon as you ignite them, all of your thrust is there
Yep.
instantaneously, more or less instantaneously. Technically, it's like 0.1 of a second, but
Sure.
you get what I'm saying
Yeah.
on that. But the way they actually separate the first two stages is kind of unique to the Minotaurs, and again harkens back to its intercontinental ballistic missile heritage. Is it's an instantaneous burnout of the first stage, firing of the separation pyros, and ignition of the second stage. So to the visual eye, you'll see a slight puff, and maybe you'll see the second stage just start tumbling wildly in the exhaust trail, but it blink and you will miss the staging of stages 1 and 2 from one another.
It's just it's like an immediate staging where the
Yeah.
upper stage engine lights while it's still connected almost, and so the full force of the upper stage exhaust hits the stage below it and just kicks it the heck out of the way. I mean, it's one of the craziest types of launches to see, which is why we rolled the camera out there. Brady traveled all the way down from his home up north so that we could share this launch with y'all live. I've got a lot of questions coming in, Chris. Can I grab
Yes.
some of those? Let me do some
Oh, of
questions
course. Yes.
and some super chats. Cheryl Johnson, thank you so much for the membership there. And then we got Chris G. That must be a different Chris G because this is a BGN currency. Appreciate the support there. Here we have Rockwell Torrey saying, love the new intro. Thanks, NSF team, for the live coverage and commentary. We're here, Rockwell. Thanks for showing up and sharing this with us. Philip Whitehouse says, show us the curve, NRO. Show us the curve. Was that a previous mission?
Show
Or
us
was
the
that
curve. Is that? I think that's
taking a
show
right?
us the curve. Yeah, and I think it's that, or it's a commentary on something else I really don't want to say on stream.
Gotcha. And let's grab a couple questions here. Here's one, Squeak Squawk, saying, why did NASA/USAF build the Minotaur launch site at Wallops, not Cape Canaveral? Can they launch these from Cape Canaveral? Do they only launch them from Wallops? Like, what's the deal?
So the Minotaurs can launch from a variety of spaceports. The Minotaur I variant has only launched from Wallops and what is now Vandenberg Space Force Base. However, they are also capable of launching from Kodiak Island in Alaska and the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station as well. They
Okay.
just have not. But other Minotaur variants have gone from those spaceports.
So it's possible it's just that the one today they're launching. Do we have a lot of these left? Are these rockets sort of like done with their life cycle and we're launching out inventory, or?
We're launching out of inventory, yes, because the whole reason we have the Minotaur family of rockets is specifically to use up the old intercontinental ballistic missile arsenal after arms reduction treaties came into effect. And basically, instead of using them for wartime operations, the nations that have them are allowed to use them for peacetime operations. We use the Minotaur, as you see here. Russia had one, it was called Rocket.
Just call it
that
rocket.
was a that would that and all of them still sort of fly, but it's sort of just using them for peaceful purposes, so we're not throwing the technology out because you have a valid rocket that you can use. But what you normally end up having to do is tweak them slightly, like the Minotaur, where the first two stages are former ICBM missiles, and the
Right.
upper two stages are commercial, off-the-shelf, solid upper stages that Northrop Grumman offers to NASA, the US government, private companies,
Right.
and that are used across their rocket fleet. And Russia sometimes has to do that and augment with upper stages as well because ICBMs by their nature don't have to reach orbit because you're
Right.
trying to hit a suborbital target. Right. So you have to
Exactly.
augment them some way to make them orbital vehicles.
That makes sense. Here is one about different variants. This is a Chitra Jaikumar, maybe. It says, are there any other Minotaur variants coming up soon? So this is a Minotaur 1, but there's
Yeah.
Minotaur 2, Minotaur 4, Minotaur. There's a bunch of different variants of the Minotaur just based on how they put the upper stages and stuff like that together. Is this the last Minotaur 1? Are there other Minotaurs being launched, different variants?
Yeah, so there's a yeah, so this is kind of one of those interesting things. So yeah. So there are still more Minotaur ones theoretically available. Minotaur 2 is a suborbital vehicle, as is Minotaur 3.
Right?
So they would not be used for upper stages. But they can be used as sounding rockets. The the 4 and the 5, they all still exist. It's just sort of how many do we have left? How many what missions is the National Reconnaissance Office looking for? How responsive are they looking for it to be? Like if they need a mission that, hey, we need something in a year, you might want a Minotaur because those parts are just sitting there.
Right.
Right. And they can be brought out of storage and put together fairly quickly in rocket world. So I do not believe off the top of hang on. There are no current Minotaur 1 future missions planned. I do not believe there are any currently known Minotaur 5s. However, the Minotaur 4 has at least 3 launches that are on its manifest. Another National Reconnaissance Office launch coming up later this year from the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport. So a Minotaur 4 will be on this stand hopefully later this year. And then there are 2 others that don't have launch dates yet for TACSAT 5 and the CSM mission as well. So the 4
Gotcha.
still has a few missions that are publicly known. But a lot of these flights are are reconnaissance office missions. So hard to say if the others still have missions to their name or not.
Gotcha. That leads me to another question here from Coy. Are all NROL missions classified? Like, just because it's an NROL, we know they're not going to tell us what's on it. Do they ever tell us what's on it?
I think sometimes we do know what's on them. Yeah, because not everything the National Reconnaissance Office does is necessarily classified. And sometimes the mission is classified, but we know exactly what's on board because there's literally only one option it could be given where it's going and how big the payload is.
Right.
But yeah, not all of them are classified. Uh, Although off the top of my head, I don't remember what the last unclassified one was,
Yeah.
but I know they're not all, like, super duper classified. Yeah.
Gotcha. And there's another question along the same lines. Do they ever unclassify them or declassify
Yes.
NRO launches? So, like, 30 years later or something like that. Oh, by the way, back in 2020, we launched a
Yes.
banana to orbit or whatever it is they're doing.
Yes, over time, missions do get declassified. Now, if you go back into the historical archive, you will need to switch your numerical thing that you're searching for because they're not all known as NROL. Back in the day, some of them were known as DoD for Department of
Ah,
Defense. But yes, a lot of classified satellites that were launched on space shuttle missions, on Delta II missions in the 90s and 2000s and 80s and 70s have been declassified at this point because the technology has advanced so far beyond why it was classified. There's no reason to keep it classified anymore. And then,
gotcha.
like I said, sometimes when you look at a massive rocket sitting on the pad and the rocket's taking this gigantic thing directly to geostationary orbit, you're like, well, there's only one option for what that could be, you know?
Right.
So sometimes you end up knowing what it is, even though it's classified.
We do a lot of inference based on the information that we have. The rocket's only so big; it has so much propellant. It's going in this direction. So a lot of times with those NROL payloads, we sort of guess what they may be
Yes.
doing. And again, folks, if you're joining us, this is live from Wallops Island, Virginia. It's Mid-Atlantic Regional. Is this the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport? This is Pad
Yes.
0B, but that is officially part of Mars.
Yes. So
Okay.
I, and someone in chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is how it has been explained to me. The Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport is the name of the spaceport. Wallops is the name of the range.
Right.
So, and it's also the name of the island. So so NASA controls the range, which is known as Wallops, named after the island. But the pads that we are looking at that Antares uses, that Minotaur uses, that Rocket Lab will use are on the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport.
Gotcha.
Again, correct me if you've heard otherwise, but that's how it's been explained to me from the folks who work on these missions, is that's the way to think about it.
Yeah.
It would be like the equivalent of, like, you wouldn't say, "Oh," like, sometimes we say, "Oh, the rocket launched off the Eastern Range," just as a different way of saying Florida, when sometimes you've said Florida and Cape Canaveral so many times, you need a different way of saying
You need
something.
something else
So,
to say.
6 of 1, but technically Wallops is the range. Yeah.
Gotcha. I asked because we've seen Antares launch from here. We know Rocket Lab's working out there as well. And I always say, oh, you're from Mars, the Mid Atlantic Regional Spaceport. And I just wanted to make sure this wasn't a Cape Canaveral situation where you've got the Cape on one side, but then there's the KSE on the other side, or I guess the Space Force base now on one side.
Yeah.
So in any event, that is a Minotaur I rocket. Heritage from intercontinental ballistic missiles. It is a rocket that gets off the pad in a hurry, and that may be happening in about 9 minutes. Right now, looking at the official information, everything's green. The range, the weather, and the vehicle are all a green status. They've rolled that tower out of the way. The structure that you see is actually it's the integration tower that sort of pivots out of the way. Well, I don't know, not the integration tower, I guess, but it's the protective tower that they leave around the rocket to protect it. And that is out of the way. Everything's green, and we're at 8 minutes and 45 seconds until launch. So let me
Yeah.
grab a couple more of these super chats. James says, Mom, I want to be like DOS when I grow up. I don't know why, but James, thanks for showing up, and we appreciate you hanging out with us here. We got Rough Riders with a quick question. How well will visibility be from Columbus, Ohio? I want to see my first rocket launch. Columbus, Ohio? I know a lot of times
Columbus,
they put out one of those visibility things, but I don't know about
Yes,
Ohio.
which we have. Hang
Okay.
on, let me first see if it's even visible from there, because I know Columbus, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. Yes, it is visible from Columbus, Ohio, theoretically.
Okay.
Um, Somewhere between a minute and 2 minutes into the flight. I'm blanking geographically on where Columbus is, so I'm going by memory and averaging here. However, the big caveat, as it always is, will be what is the weather like. The
Right.
weather's very, very cloudy out over that direction. So as with everything, it is possible that all of New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, the Carolinas, portions of Georgia, Tennessee, Massachusetts, all of those states in New England, and portions of southern Ontario and Quebec could see this. It is completely dependent on your cloud cover, though.
Gotcha. And I'm going to put that link into chat. If you're looking for visibility here,
There we go.
that
Yeah.
is me spamming the link into chat. That is a Wallops tweet. And if you click that, you can see where you are. It's got a key. It says, T minus X number of seconds. You can see it on the screen now as well. But go and check that out, and you can see sort of the direction to look and T minus, or T plus, actually, T plus, how many seconds you should expect to maybe see. For this, maybe just a trail. It's unlikely you would see the rocket itself, but you may see the big plume of the exhaust trail behind it. That's going to be the easiest thing for you to see.
Yes.
So coming up, let me grab just a couple more of these. Rough Riders, thank you for that one. We've got Harry Young saying, looks like Aries 1 with inverted color scheme. The inverted color scheme. Thank you, Harry, for the support. Yellow Rocket Good from DYU. Thank you so much, DYU, for helping with everything you help with. He's a member of the NASA Spaceflight team and tossing in some for Yellow Rocket Good. We've got Axie saying, go redacted rocket go. And then Thomas Anfang says,
I like
standing
that.
outside. Yeah,
Redacted.
go redacted rocket go, right? Thomas Anfang says, standing outside in Virginia, hoping to see this live. Looking forward to potentially seeing crew launches from here, courtesy of Rocket Lab's Neutron. So, Thomas, thank you for stopping in. Hope you see it live. If not, we'll have it here on the stream. And we are under 6 minutes now, Chris. Do you have anything else we need to cover about the launch before it goes here?
Yeah, I think I would just say that, remember that things are dynamic. We're looking good here today. But, we're watching the weather. Obviously, technical things can happen, but, so far so good. Everything's looking good. It will be a very, very quick ascent. The first stage only burns for just over a minute. Each stage basically just burns for barely over a minute. But the generalized sequence that we will see here today is we'll see the initial liftoff. We will see the first three stages fire in sequential order very, very quickly. And then the mission will enter a coast phase, because the way solid rockets get to orbit is you use all of your lower stages to push your apogee, or the highest point of your orbit, up to what the mission's target should be and the inclination of your orbit, correct? And then you coast on up to apogee. And then right before you get to apogee, the fourth stage is a solid rocket motor that fires for about 64 seconds, so about 32 seconds before you reach apogee. They will ignite that fourth stage, which sole purpose of that is to raise the orbital perigee from underneath the surface of the Earth to up above the atmosphere and into the acceptable range that the mission allows. So, because this is also a classified flight, we are expecting to see up until payload fairing separation, which occurs during third stage flight. After that, it will be up to it will be up likely to the National Reconnaissance Office, who has been doing most of the tweeting about this mission, to confirm the successful separation of the payloads and the mission. If sometimes they don't do that, though, so sometimes we also pay attention to our friend Jonathan McDowell when he tweets that Space Command has locked on to the objects in orbit, and we have good orbital numbers and the appropriate number of satellites in orbit, which would indicate mission success. But that's sort of the timeline of what we're expecting here today. Although without knowing the targeted orbital apogee, it is impossible to firmly say how long that coast period will be.
Gotcha. All right, and we're switching around, testing some of our feeds here.
Yes.
We of course have the the Wallops feed as well, as Brady was running a little tech check there. But we've backed off the camera just a tad because, like we said, when this thing goes off the pad, you need to have some sky above the frame because hopefully in about 3 minutes here, we're going to get this thing.
Well, we do know that the flight safety officer is currently red. It sounds like they're working an issue.
Ah,
In
Michael chiming
oh,
in there.
interesting.
Did we get any information on what that is? It an issue
Trevor,
with the rocket? Is it the range?
Trevor Malman tweeted that the FSO is currently red. That's the flight safety officer, and telemetry is showing armed. And sorry, telemetry is not showing armed and is instead showing safe. So it
Okay.
sounds like the rocket is not in the correct mode, or some sort of telemetry system is not in the right mode.
All right. So we will
That's
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yes. So basically, yeah, if that's the case, then yeah, maybe we're not going anywhere in a couple minutes, although
It's interesting because the
sorry, I was
official.
going that's what I
Yeah.
was just gonna say, Dos, take it away, yeah.
Yeah, the official stream still shows all green status. Range, weather, and vehicle are all still green. So they haven't
And
updated
an
that. Go
update:
ahead.
the flight safety officer is back to green.
Okay.
There we
Well,
go. Yeah.
there you go. Maybe that's why they didn't change their icons on their readout. But sounds like again a little bit of a hiccup there. The FSO, the flight safety officer, was red, no go. But it looks like that's cleared up, Michael, and we're green, good to go now.
Yes.
And it
Okay.
sounds like they are running through the final polls and configurations of the rocket here as we cross the 90-second mark until liftoff.
And quick note, we are going to bring up the audio from the rocket, but we're going to wait until the rocket actually goes. There's a lot of photographers and other press around, so we were getting a lot of side noise off of our microphone. We had limited space to put out the ambient microphone for the launch itself. So we will be switching to that, but we're going to keep that silent until we see the rocket going so that we can make sure we're not getting a bunch of people's conversations out there watching the launch in person.
Well, then get ready to say whoa as this thing gets out of Wallops exit stage right. About 50 seconds to go now until the launch of a Minotaur I rocket. This is a Northrop Grumman provided all solid rocket vehicle in 4 stages, launching a classified mission for the National Reconnaissance Office known as NROL, or National Reconnaissance Office Launch 111.
All right. So coming
And
up
at
on
30 seconds. Again,
Yep.
sorry, Dos, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you got it as well. Just coming up on 30 seconds there. We're gonna see if this thing goes. We're aware of the slight flickering there, folks. We are seeing that. That is not on your end. We do see that as well. So coming up on 15 seconds. Chris, I'll let you take it away. I'm just gonna say whoa.
Okay, you just say whoa, Das, definitely. Because here we go, under 10 seconds. It's an instantaneous ignition at T0. And there we go, liftoff of the Minotaur I vehicle. Look at that sucker go.
Wow. And it looks like it's going a little bit to the left there and already into the clouds at T plus not very many seconds. Let's see if Brady finds it again.
Oh my
Not.
gosh. I know, yeah, the official feeds have it really well right now. Oh my gosh, that was incredible. All right, and it's already supersonic, so we are approaching, at this point, power performance is nominal.
In a pretty big delay there on this stream, it looks like it actually just took off in the Wallops feed. So
Yeah, the Wallops feed was a few seconds behind, but we're approaching staging, so watch for that puff indicating stage 1 burnout and stage 2 ignition here. Already half its original mass. Oh my gosh.
there it
we go.
was. And then you could see the
Oh,
piece
yeah,
stumbling away there. Yeah.
that
God.
final moment of like, "Don't forget me." As it
That
goes
we,
so on to stage two's burn, also just about a minute. So again, very, very short propulsive burns of the solid stages here for Minotaur.
Yeah.
But on to the second of 4 stages now.
Hey, look
Everything
at that
says it's still
plume
looking good.
expansion. You got
Did you
sort
see
of
how
the
quickly it changed too?
uh-huh. These things really get out of dodge, folks. You saw there it went straight up and it cleared the pad really quickly. It went straight off the pad. So it is going to continue downrange. Interestingly, there, Chris, from our perspective, it looked like it was going straight up and maybe to the left a little bit. We didn't really see the big dog leg from our camera's perspective there.
Yeah.
Um,
If we later on, if we show the official feed, they got it.
yeah, you could definitely see it from there. There, we're getting the
Yeah.
clean pad. Thanks, Wallops. My favorite view on launch day. Even Wallops must watch the stream. They know what to show.
That's
But
gonna be it
Yes.
for their live coverage because it's a classified payload.
yeah,
Yep.
so there's no onboard cameras or anything like that. They had that Wallops tracking camera there, but they've cut back over it to the pad, and they're going to shut down the entire live stream, right, Michael?
Yep, they're
Pretty
probably gonna
much.
have their talking head come back on screen in a second if I had to guess.
Yep. So let's see what we've got over on
Or
Brady's
not.
camera. Yeah, there we
Or
go. They just went
not.
straight
Yeah.
into
There
that.
we go.
And
But
getting some.
basically at this point into the flight, the third stage booster is firing at this point, almost nearing the overall completion of its burn here in a few seconds, and then the rocket will enter its prolonged coast period as it heads up toward its orbital apogee, but still on a suborbital trajectory because that fourth stage won't fire until much later in the mission. But that's what
Right.
should be happening right now, is that shutdown actually right about now of that third stage.
Yep. And again, folks, this with the NROL, the classified payload, they shut down. They don't have any cameras on the rocket or anything like that. This is back to Brady Kinniston's camera over there near the launch site, only about 2 point something miles away, really not very far away at all. And there's not going to be much more to show, except, I guess, some people walking in front of the camera. So
Yeah,
let's
no, I mean, that's really it, because at this point, if we get any, confirmation of mission success, it would come from either the NRO in about 40 minutes to an hour, or it would come from Jonathan McDowell when Space Command gets the lock on the objects in orbit after they've separated.
right. So there you
And
have
that
it.
would be hours from now. Yeah.
Right. We're not gonna. It's not like they stay live until confirmation. Da, 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 and then NROL like tweets like, "Hey, yay! Oops, we weren't supposed to tell you what the payload is." That's not a normal thing we get. They normally a pretty big delay there on confirmation. But let's do this. Let's read a couple more of the questions here. Just a couple hanging
Yeah.
ones, and I think we'll call it a stream because that rocket, like we said, got out of Dodge.
It did
Cassie
indeed.
W says, always enjoy your wealth of knowledge and sharing this with my boyfriend. Thanks, guys. Cassie, thank you for joining it and thanks for sharing it with the significant other there. We like people bringing in more viewers to the stream. um, Stargazer Girl 79 says, education, adventure, and watching history in the making as I danced in the ocean while watching SN15 being assembled. What a life. So a Starship reference down from Boca Chica sounds like dancing in the ocean. Stargazer Girl, thank you so much for stopping in today. Thunderstruck, got some ACDC here, new member. Thank you for joining the club. And then Celadon Hair Extraordinaire with the question, Chris. Why a Minotaur and not another vehicle? Do we know why they chose Minotaur?
Yeah, so the satellites are not very heavy in mass. In fact, we know that the total payload weight cannot be more than 580 kilograms because that's the maximum that the Minotaur one can lift into a low Earth orbit. So we know they're very small. So, like a Falcon 9 would have been overkill for this, and Atlas would have been overkill in that regard. And there, and this is sort of the interesting element of how this works. I'm not really sure, but the federal government already paid for two of those rocket stages years ago, when they were missiles. So the overall pricing of a Minotaur one, um, let me I don't know if that's actually public knowledge, but let me check really quick. Because it's also possible that what happens here is some horse trading on what the exact pricing that would be charged to the government for government missions is, because the government has already paid for some of the stages. So
Ah,
it might be a trade-off of all of those sort of things there. And again, like we were saying a little bit earlier, it might also be a matter of, when these sort of small scale missions launch by the NRO, it might be a matter of responsiveness where the NRO wants the mission to launch by X number of date, and you've got all these sections already sitting around waiting for missions, and it's just easier from a time perspective to get the timing that you want.
yeah, that makes sense. You don't have to work around other launches. Like if it's trying to go out of the Cape on a Falcon, you've got Starlinks in the way and CRS and all sorts of other missions. But out here, Minotaur doesn't launch nearly as frequently as Falcon 9. And so they sort of have, I'm going to put it this way, the pad to themselves. So they have a lot of flexibility as to when it goes and that sort of thing. So all sorts of different things go into choosing the rockets, the mass of the payload, the volume of the payload, where it's
Oh,
going. Go ahead.
and also very crucially, there is no small sat launcher yet that launches from the United States that's sort of
Oh,
within this payload capacity when you want to launch multiple things together, right? The Pegasus rocket from Northrop Grumman is a small sat launcher, but it's very constrained because of how small it is. Launcher 1 is just now coming online. Rocket Lab doesn't launch from the US yet. Astra isn't up and running for orbital flights yet. There will be others that will come online, but right now,
ah.
if you need a small rocket, I mean, it's kind of Minotaur.
Yeah, and you wouldn't expect it to transport the classified payload to New Zealand or something like that, right? It's a
Well, and a
classified
lot of
payload,
times, right, a lot of times you can't. It depends on the mission. There have been NRO payloads on Rocket Lab flights that have launched from New Zealand,
right?
but it also depends on what the payload is, because some payloads, you're exactly right, cannot leave the United States because of that reason.
Gotcha. Unless they leave the United States on one of our rockets, right?
Well, yes, yeah, yes, they
Because
do
we
leave, yes.
we just saw that thing leave the United States in a hurry. So, a couple more here. Steve Newton, new membership. Thank you so much for joining the membership club. There, we have like a Discord server, and we have like previews of like early access to videos and stuff like that. Just little perks you get as a member based on the level. There's a couple different levels, but we appreciate you there, Steve. Thank you for the support. And then Ron Smith checking in saying, managed to spot it all the way in the Richmond area, moving up fast to the sun. Ron, good deal going outside, and
Nice.
glad you were able to get an eye on it there. So maybe just one or two more quick questions. Das, have you had any crab cakes yet? Chincoteague has some great fresh ones. Ron, I'm not out there, so we'll have to pass that information on to Brady. We'll make sure Brady can get some crab cakes if he's in the mood for some crab cakes out on Chincoteague Island. It's like a little tourist summer break island that's right there near Wallops. There's lots of amenities and stuff like there. If you ever travel for a launch at Wallops, you can find places to stay, you can find food to eat and stuff like that right there at Chincoteague Island. Some sort of horses too. So let's see, Chris. Let's already asks, is the staging for this launch called a banana split?
Oh, I wish it were.
I'm just gonna toss
That's the
that out there.
liftoff.
Yeah, liftoff. It's not a rocket. It does.
The
It
banana
definitely
split
splits. Yeah,
10
it
out
gets
of
out of
10. Yeah,
Dodge. So, hey, Robert Shelton, thanks for the membership as well. And then here's a good one. This is one I don't think we've had on a live stream before, and we've answered lots of questions. What's with all the mythical names for rockets? We've got Minotaur, we've got Pegasus, we had Saturn. Are they just choosing, like, is Minotaur, does this have something to do with a bull or something? It's just a cool name they chose. Do we know anything about where they got the name from,
Oh,
Chris?
where did they choose the name from?
I don't know.
I have never
Sounds cool.
personally seen where they took the name Minotaur from. I'm sure that's out there, but I've never actually seen, so I can't speak to that particular one. But yes, a lot of times the rocket name has symbolism. Either harkening back to things of strength in mythology, or or power. Sometimes rockets, and payloads are given names from antiquity to match sort of the name of the system they're going to. Like, for example, Jupiter. So then NASA named Juno Jupiter's
Aha.
wife, and so then we
Yes.
sent Jupiter's wife to go check up on Jupiter, right? I mean, that was the joke when we launched Juno. So sometimes you do strike that. Sometimes it's because you want to be funny. The Falcon 9 is named after the Millennium Falcon
Right.
from Star Wars.
And it has 9 engines.
So
So you put
and it
those
has
things
9
together.
engines.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Falcon and
so
9.
yeah. So I mean, it's just one of those things. You can kind of name the rocket whatever you want to name it, right?
Gotcha.
But yeah, a lot of mythology stems from strength and what you want the rocket to do or what you want the rocket to sort of evoke. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we haven't run into like an internet named rocket and ended up with like Launchy McThrustface or anything like that. I'm okay with the mythical names instead of that.
Yes. Yes.
I do believe here, folks, that it is time for us to pack up our remote camera out there at Wallops. Again, Brady is out there with the media crew, the press crew, and they are going to have to pack up and caravan back out. So we're going to be losing this live feed. Official broadcast is already offline because it's a classified payload. So with the lack of live feeds to show you, I believe that's going to bring us to the end of our live coverage of NROL-111, launching out of Wallops Island, Virginia, Pad 0B. You saw that thing get out of Dodge, and it is
Oh,
on its
wait.
way. Go ahead.
I think someone has an answer. I don't know if it's right, but Joe in our chat says Minotaur is a combination of Minuteman and Taurus, which are the two rockets that the Minotaur is derived from, which would
Oh,
make sense. There you
that
go.
would make sense. That
Now, I
would
don't
make
know if
perfect
that's true,
sense.
but that would make perfect sense. So I just wanted to say it. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. I mean, that would make sense. So, folks, like I said, that is going to bring us to the end of our live coverage here. This is what we do. If you haven't followed the stream yet, make sure you click the sub button. You can find your way back here. We do all sorts of different broadcasts, whether it's a rocket that jumps off the pad from Wallops, things launching out of the Cape, Starlinks every other day, it seems, all sorts of live coverage from Starbase, Boca Chica down in Texas, where SpaceX is building those big Mars rocket, the Starship program down there, have a ton of videos, live streams of them moving equipment around and stacking rocket parts, daily videos here on the channel as well. So if you haven't followed the channel yet, make sure you do. You know the button, click the subscribe thing, turn on the notifications. If you're not getting notifications from YouTube, follow us on Twitter as well, at NASASpaceflight. Already over on Twitter. Every time we go live, you'll get some tweets there as well. So you can turn on notifications there if you don't trust the YouTube notifications, and get a ping from the Bird app every time we go live or we upload one of those cool daily videos, which are mostly backup noises and crane operations down at Boca Chica these days. But good times. Thanks to Brady out there in the field. You can see Brady's links in chat there. Twitter.com/thefavoritist is his Twitter. And he's also got his own website, his photography website. Professional photographer, does all sorts of different cool stuff. BradyKinnistonphotography.com, I hope it is. It's cut off there for me, but I'm pretty sure just click the link there is the easiest way to get it. Thanks for putting the links there in chat, mods. Also, back in the studio with me, Chris Gebhardt. Chris, thank you as always. We appreciate you.
My pleasure.
All right. Chris is the assistant managing editor for NASA Spaceflight, and I'm talking really fast because I know Brady has to turn this camera off. Back also as well in the studio, Michael Baylor helping out, keeping track on those official call-outs and stuff like that. Michael, thank you for all the support for the live streams. Appreciate you.
No problem.
And then here, myself, I am John Galloway for NASA Spaceflight. We're going to go ahead and be signing off here today. Again, thank you so much for joining us for the launch of that Minotaur I. Glad we got to see it go there. And we will be back for more launches. I think we've got some stuff happening out of the Cape later this week. So be on the lookout for those streams. Like I said, follow on Twitter or make sure you sub to the YouTube channel here. And we will see you nerds later. Thanks again for watching.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good. Toggling up. Roger roll, Atlantic.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Flight downside, SC off. Bring in, SC off.
Thanks.
You bet.
Concur. We don't need any more of these.